Let's make a low effort, high payoff, no-knead bread that'll make the whole flock stampede to you with joy. Hello shepherds, welcome back, and if you're new here, hello. This is where we talk all things sheepy. My name's Megan, and this is a foundational dough recipe. If bread had bones, this bread would be the boniest. And it has a crumb texture that the kids love for their grilled cheese sandwiches, or even spread some homemade jams and butter onto. It has this bouncy, chewy, rustic crust that contrasts really nice with this soft, pillowy interior in the best of ways. And it's really easy to fancy up. So let's get into it. This dough does puff up a lot, so first off, make sure that you use a really big container, especially if you're going to go the more relaxed fridge proofing route or bread mode. It will rise and fall over a couple of days, and that's okay, but you have been warned. Starting off, this recipe uses all-purpose flour, and I just refilled my flour bin, so I'm tapping the air out of this measuring cup just to see how much it compresses. For the best results, it really does help to use weights rather than cups for this. Mine's measuring around 3 cups of flour, but we're using 450 grams of all-purpose flour. I like to make a little well in the center of my flour, and I'm stirring everything together. I like to think it helps everything combine a little bit well. You can skip this if you want though. So let's go ahead and toss in our liquids. I'm using about 1 1/4 of a cup or 340 grams of whey that I have left over from some baby cheeses that I've been making. The pH is clocking in around 5, and I really want to lean into that lactic acid in the whey as well as some of the cultures to add some nuance of flavor to the bread. If you don't have any whey on hand, that's okay though. Water works really well too. And my youngest requested to have this to be an extra sourdough-like flavor, and unfortunately I accidentally murked my starter. I know I'm a bad sourdough shepherd. So how do you get that lovely texture and tangy chew of sourdough? One secret is in cheese making, not just in the whey, but if you don't have whey, we have citric acid. Just like when we add it to our quick mozzarella or ricotta, adding it to our dough here will give that final bread a really wonderful, delightful tang. I'm adding in around half a teaspoon, but there's really a lot of leeway here in how much citric acid you want to add or remove. If you don't have citric acid, subbing lemon juice for some of the whey in the liquids should work. So now let's go ahead and toss in our yeast. I'm using 7 grams or 2 teaspoons of instant yeast, and let's go ahead and stir this together. I haven't added salt yet, it's just my own personal hang up. I like to stir the yeast in pretty wellish so the salt doesn't have a chance to rain on the yeast's party. And this is a sea salt, so it's a little coarser grain than say table salt. So if you're using a finer salt, you may need to add less if you're using teaspoons rather than grams. I'm using 9 grams and it's measuring out to around 1 1/4 teaspoons of salt. If you want to add in extras, you can do now or wait until our final proof step. Right now, I'm just stirring everything together until it combines well. It'll be really sticky and shaggy and it clings to the bowl like its life depends on it. So if you're using the stand mixer also, use a dough hook and it literally comes together in seconds. So as it is now, it looks really well put together. It looks really messy, but we're aiming for a really easy, rustic here, farmhouse style but not barny bread. I like to cover my bowl with a big plate to keep that dough and that humidity in and all that dry air out. So let's go ahead and leave it to rest at room temperature. So here it's around 26 degrees Celsius or 80 degrees Fahrenheit for about 2 hours. Okay, so I kind of lost track of time and I think about 2 hours has passed. But it's puffy, it's doubled, and look at all those tiny bubbles. If you want to pop it in the fridge to further develop that tang and depth of flavor, go ahead and do now. Or if you want to save some of that dough to make a fresh bread later on, you can, for up to 7 days for the best results though. Just make sure that your dough has a secure lid so it doesn't dry out or escape. The only thing worse than the sheep exploring the garden is a runaway dough. Okay, so now let's deflate our dough and shape it. Grab yourself some parchment paper or whatever baking thing you use. And we want to warm up our oven to around 450 degrees Fahrenheit or 232 degrees Celsius. I'm popping my cast iron into the oven as it warms up, so this will really help with that oven spring or that bread rise really quickly. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our final shape and proof. So do you need to knead this bread? No. I've plopped it onto the parchment to rise and then popped it into the oven and it still puffs up. the crust does get extra craggly. And also at this point, if you want to add in any nuts, cheese bits, any seeds, or anything, go ahead and add them in now. This is your last call. My youngest requested a round bread, so we're gonna make it roundish. And since it's a high hydration type of dough, I really like to wet my hands to keep that dough from sticking too much to my fingers. And then I'm gently pulling and tucking the dough just to get it to that approximate shape. And then make it easier to handle since I'm using my cast iron as a sort of baking stone, and I want to transfer my lump of dough to this parchment paper and then cover it with our bowl. It'll be tight, and as it rises, it'll stick to the bowl. So to help with that, I'm going to pull out my trusty sheep ghee. It's butter, it's oil, it's flammable, and it's non-stick. So we're going to coat our bowl well just to keep the dough from sticking to our sides as it rises. Now let's rest our bowl, or however you say it, for about 60 minutes. The oven should be pretty hot by then and our cast iron nice and sizzling. And then if you're not covering your bread in the oven like a Dutch oven style, let's go ahead and add a cookie sheet or an oven safe pan under your tray, baking stone, or cast iron. Later on, we're going to add some hot water to that bottom pan and create the steam effect for our bread. And this will help our bread rise more as it's baking. Okay, so our dough is proof now and it's ready to slide in the oven. So get your hot water ready and let's score our dough. I'm using my very much dull knife to gently encourage my dough to think about slicing. Will I sharpen it? Maybe, eventually. But let's go ahead and pop it in the oven right away and add our hot water. I have a bread making only spritzer. It's optional, it's something that I like to use. I just like to spritz it for more steam and close our oven door and bake it for about 20 to 30 minutes till it's golden brown. It'll cook up real quick. And now that it's done, there are two things. First, if you want a crispy crust, set it down aside to cool, maybe even transfer it to a wire rack. This will really help it crisp up on the outside, but also trap all that moisture inside. But if you want a tender crust, cool it down covered. As the bread cools underneath the dome, it'll keep that crust from drying crunchy. And that's it. This bread is super fun. It's a sort of choose your own adventure type of bread. I love to make this bread when I need a couple easy dishes to make for the week, whether paired with a slice of cheese for a quick snack, or slathered in baked cheese to dip in some soup, or nosh on as a type of crostini or bruschetta. It's a perfect bread to make when you're pressed for time, but you want a really simple but satisfying bakery style bread. This is a bigger loaf, so if you want a smaller or half the amount, I broke down the ratios in weights and added it here on the screen. Also, this is a really great dough to make well in advance, where you can just grab some and leave the rest in the fridge to proof further on. There's really a lot of flexibility with this bread. And when it comes to everything, it really helps to have some things that work with your life rather than add complexity. If you're opting to make this bread in a Dutch oven style, I like to use a small sheet of aluminum to prevent scorched bread bottoms and extend the bake 20 minutes, initially covered, and then we remove the cast iron top and continue baking for about 20 to 30 minutes till golden brown. Sometimes I want to build an outdoor oven, but what do you think? Is that something that's worth it, or do we have too many hobbies? And so, if you made it this far, an extra special thank you. I appreciate you. And if you enjoyed diving into the sheepy side of the dairy world, hit that subscribe button and the bell, where we explore sheep-focused lifestyle every week. And here's a sweet goodbye nuzzle from the flock.